I know, like, almost nothing about beer. I know that, like, there's a huge, giant, complex body of knowledge. But if you could sort of, like, baby step me through what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. So this is where the liquid is separated from the grain.
Okay.
So after this process, we'll have the grain will be left over.
This smells delicious. It's like a muffin when it's cooking.
Liquid bread.
I thought, like, the yeast was the thing you add.
This is a biochemical reaction is probably the better way to say it, because it's an enzyme reaction. If you want to think of it in these terms, breweries really produce two products. One is wort, W-O-R-T, that unfermented liquid. That's one product, and of course that goes back to the fermentation hall where we add the yeast, and then the yeast creates the beer, and that's the second product that we produce.
That's really cool. Okay, so what's over in this one?
Our sweet wort is being pumped from the bottom of this lauter into our kettle here.
So this is hotter?
Well, we're gonna boil it, but it's still filling. So it's gonna take a while for it to fill, and then this has steam jackets. So we send high pressure steam through the jackets, and it'll create a boil, and we want a very vigorous boil, and our typical boil is about 90 minutes.
During the boil is one place that Matt might insert some hops. Hops are leafy buds related to cannabis that first appeared in European beer in the Middle Ages, when they were added to help extend its shelf life. We use hops these days to add bitterness and aroma. Craft breweries and their customers seem to love big hopped-up beers.
You know what's cool? There's a ladder here. When the guy cleans it, he climbs down.
Yeah, Brian was in that kettle just earlier, yeah.
Be a terrible death, like if a man fell into this and like drowned in the hot beer. Like, I would hate if that happened.
It's never been a more exciting time in brewing, I'd say globally, with the technology and the agricultural quality of ingredients we have these days.
In 1920, Prohibition wiped breweries off the map. When beer drinking returned 13 years later, mass production became the order of the day. Now, nearly a century later, microbreweries appear to be taking over the country. But no matter who makes your favorite brew, it starts with yeast. And Flying Dog needs a full-time laboratory just to keep theirs alive.
That's the yeast? The yeast that goes in the beer?
That is the yeast that goes in the beer.
I thought it comes like in a little powder, like in the store. You put a pinch in something.
Certainly, yeah, baker's yeast, that could look like that. But brewer's yeast is typically liquid form.
It looks nasty.
Well, it makes beer, so can't be too nasty. When it comes to beer making, yeast can be a real wild card. For thousands of years, brewers didn't even know it existed. All they knew was that to turn sweet liquid into alcohol, they needed to stir it with a magic stick or store it in a special room, each covered in millions of invisible yeast cells. Yeast wasn't even identified until Louis Pasteur did it in 1857. And back at Flying Dog, Ben has a whole biology lab devoted to yeast reproduction. Given ideal conditions, yeast cells multiply rapidly. Different strains of yeast provide different flavors, and scientists recognize several hundred different types. In just a few days, the yeast will grow from this to a full 7 barrels.
The thing with beer is that the scale of how it's made and how it's drunk is so vast. If you're going to drink beer, you're going to want to have at least 4 or 5 12-ounce beers, maybe pounders if it's cheap beer. That's a lot of beer. It's a lot of beer to drink it and even more to make.